Okay, here is Servo Challenge 2. In this one, it says to write a program that uses button A as an on-off switch to activate the servo motor. So whenever we press button A the first time, it turns the servo motor on and it moves back and forth from 0 to 180, back to 0 to 180, and it will keep moving until we press the button A again, which turns it off. So anytime we need to do something like an on-off switch, we typically want to use a variable. So we'll create a variable and we will use the A button to change that variable between 0 and 1. So 0 being off and 1 being on. So let's start with that. We'll go to variables, we'll make a new variable, and we'll just call it switch. And when we start the program, we want to set this variable to 0. So at when the program starts, the variable is 0, which represents off. And then we know we're going to use button A as the button that turns the servo on and off. So whenever we press button A, we want to check if the variable switch is equal to 0, then we want to change it to 1. If it's equal to 1, then we want to change it back to 0. So obviously for that, we're going to need an if-then block and an equals comparison. Right? And so we want to first see, when we press the button, we want to see if switch equals 0. If it does, if switch is equal to 0, then we set switch to 1. And maybe just to help indicate that we've changed something, we can play a little sound. Okay, so if switch equals 0, when we press the button, then we change it to 1. If we click this plus sign, then we get our else section, right? So else, meaning if switch is not 0, for example, if switch is 1, then we want to set it back to 0. And we can play a different sound to indicate that we've turned it off. I don't know, jump down, why not? Okay, so then you can see every time we press button A, this if statement will check the current value of the switch variable. If it's 0, it changes it to 1. If it's not 0, then it changes it to 0. So that will just switch it back and forth between 1 and 0. And now we can use that variable inside of a forever loop to decide whether the servo motor should be rotating or if it should be stopped. So we'll get a forever loop, and we'll need another if-then block. And here we're going to use a similar comparison to over here. Right? In fact, I can just duplicate this. And so we said that 0 is off and 1 represents on. So if switch equals 1, meaning if it's on, if we want it to be on, then we will make our servos move. So if switch equals 1, we'll set the servo angle to, let's say 0. And then we will pause 1 second to give it time to get all the way to that angle. After it's paused for a second, then we will set it back to 180 and pause again so that it moves back and forth between 0 and 180 every second. But notice that this code will only run if switch equals 1. So as soon as we press button A and set switch back to 0, then this code will stop running and the servo will stop. And that should be all that you need to solve Coding Challenge 2.